Okay, so overall, I think this game has a lot of stuff going for it in terms of what side games are doing right now. Let me lower the volume a little bit. It's better. Okay, so I have a list of things that I think is gonna help the game out pretty big, immensely. So I have a few reasons why it will work and a few reasons why it may not work. Like not tank, I don't think, but may not have a good long lifespan like some fighting games do. I think one of the big aspects is it looks good, right? The trailer and all the characters have good designs and the game looks aesthetically pleasing. That's like a big deal because if you look back at some of the games like MVCI or like Street Fighter 5 or KOF 14, those games get ripped pretty hard for having bad aesthetics. Like they get joked on about how ugly they are, and I think it's pretty big for fighting games to have aesthetically pleasing looks. Because all the games that do look really good always get praised for it constantly. So it's either like you can have a really bad looking design. What's up, E-Tech? You can have a really bad looking design, or you can have a really good looking design, and it's a big deal for have a nice looking fighting game. People are gonna praise it for it, and this game looks nice, so that's immediately a plus. But yeah, we still have a lot of characters come out. But yeah, everything looks good on the game, to be honest. I don't think this game will get any flack for animation or how the characters look. And obviously it's Granblue, so the designs are big. Uh-oh, who followed me? I can't see my stuff blocking. RG Gamer, RJ Gamer 98. Thank you for the follow. Yeah, they praise Dragon Ball constantly for the design, like Guilty Gear, but you know, Arceus always does well. So I had no doubt that the game was gonna look good from the start. But another point I want to add. Oh, it's Alice. Oh, what's up? What's up, Alice? My second point is Cygames has the bread. They got some dough on them, for sure. So I'll show you, right? I don't know if I can find exactly like what their net worth is, but I'll show you this. So Cygames is like partially owned by a bunch of different companies, right? So owners, you have this company Cyber Agents, 69%. This company DENA, it's like for, I forgot what this is for exactly. But it doesn't matter. It's not that big a deal. A slight Nintendo ownership too, 5%. But the big one, Cyber Agents, right? Cyber Agents, the revenue is OD. They reached 3.28 billion in revenue thanks to Shadowverse, which is a Cygames game, and Bang Dream. I think it's probably their own game. But yeah, they got some dough. Cygames has a lot of dough to work with to make the game prosper in tournaments and obviously content and stuff like that. So it's a big plus because a lot of fighting game companies don't have that much money to work with. You know, stuff's kind of tight. Or if it is from a big company like Capcom, obviously divisions are cut. So their fighting game division is going to have a lot less money than something that's obviously like DMC or Monster Hunter. But that's a big deal for them to have a lot of money to work with. My third point is probably it's a big IP. Obviously, Granblue is huge. Granblue is a huge deal. So here are the numbers for some of the bigger games. See if I can find Granblue real quick. Granblue, yeah, Granblue Fantasy, right? 22 million. It's pretty big. I think his list is old too, right? Release date. Yeah, well, at least 10 million. So that's nice. 22 million is a lot of players, and that's only counting for Granblue. Like, would even take into account about Shadowverse and their other games. But obviously, Granblue's big in Japan, at least. In America, it's popular too. You know, a lot of like anime fighting game players also play Granblue. So that's good. At least for Japan wise, the game will probably do well just for the fact that it's a big IP. Which is nice, because having a big IP is always going to give you boosts. Like obviously like Dragon Ball, Street Fighter, with like IPs that are obviously well known, it helps the game out a lot. When instead of coming out with like, I don't know if people remember Rising Thunder, right? People didn't, those characters like brand new, like nobody's ever seen those characters before, and they're kind of plain, so the game could tank really quickly if you don't have a nice IP to back it up with good character designs. And obviously people love Granblue characters. Right? They're huge. There's mad characters in this game that people love. Obviously Kylie is one of them. Obviously the waifus are nice. They have a lot of collabs too, but you know, it's gonna help. These characters are big. So it's a big deal to have a nice franchise that is successful. My next point is good marketing right now for Granblue for Granblue Versus. And what I mean by that is a lot of, I don't know if I want to show it on Twitter, but so basically a lot of other players right now. Actually, I could probably pull up my Twitter real quick. So my Twitter will have its so I made a tweet a couple days ago. Let's see if I can find it. Right here, right? So people like the Kill Sage and Hook are probably being contacted by Granblue to promote the game. And there's some other big ones. Like these are like the smaller ones being like, hey, check out the beta. But Justin Wong, Flo, trying to think, Kayane, like they're getting a lot of people that have good reach to notice the game. So obviously people with like 10k followers on Twitter, like 20k, 30k. So it gets a lot of eyes on the game, and also from different countries, because Kayane is huge in the EU scene. So obviously people are going to be following her, and they're going to be like, whoa, this game's kind of sick. Instead of having like normal marketing, this is smart marketing, because you're getting people that are established players that have a lot of followings to point out the game, which is nice. It's going to help them a lot, I think, because it lets people know this game is coming out and it looks cool. And obviously having Daigo and Fudo play it as well is a big deal for Japan, because they're on their Side Games team, because Side Games has the esports like division, I guess. I don't know what you call it, but it's pretty good. Probably my last point, I think, why it'll do well is the esports scene. So they already have another game, which is Shadowverse. Shadowverse has a World Grand Prix, right? They have a World Grand Prix that you do every year. So I don't know if I'm able to find all the rules for it, but this is pretty good. This is a lot of dough. Like I said before, they have a lot of money to work with, and they support their players and their content creation as well. They go big. First place, you win $1 million USD, and this is in Japan, right? Where obviously laws like prevent people from getting money, but obviously if you give it in USD, it's fine. So these players are getting paid a lot. 5K for 8th place, that's pretty good. That's way better than any fighting game tournament I've seen in the past like 2-3 years. Maybe Capcom Cup is equal to that, but obviously this kind of money is nice. This is good money for someone who plays fighting games, especially when coming from like, you know, Dragon Ball, where if you don't get 3rd place, you're basically screwed. You're getting no money, and that's unfortunate. Which is like you busted your ass to get 4th place or even 3rd place, and you walk away with like $100. That's kind of brutal. And not just in Dragon Ball, also in Smash, I believe. Smash has a pretty shitty prize pool. I wonder if I can find the ruling on stuff like that. Like, how do you get in? I believe it's, if I remember correctly, it's set between regions. So each region has like a certain amount of players. So Japan has a bunch of players, America has a bunch of players, EU, and like Latin America or something like that. So there's always a representation from every region, instead of, you know, something like a Dragon Ball World Tour where one dude collects, you know, all the Dragon Balls and is just so little representation. Like in the World Tour Finals last year, right? It was the only two Americans were Hook and Sonic, and they were in it because they won a Dragon Ball earlier on. All of the Japanese players won the last chance qualifier, so obviously representation for other countries were pretty much screwed, which is obviously not a good look. It makes it more enticing that if you live like somewhere like Latin America, maybe you don't have the best competition compared to Japan or America, but you still have a chance to get in to the World Tour or the World Grand Prix for Shadowverse. So I think that makes it more enticing because, you know, you can bust your ass and maybe you can't win it all, but you can at least be on the stage and possibly win money, which is nice. So those are all my points that I think it won't do well, but I mean, I think it will do well. My points that I don't think Granblue might not do well is gameplay-wise. Gameplay-wise, it could hurt if, at least from the initial start of the game, that it doesn't have a diverse meta. And what I mean by that is, take into account a game like Marvel 3, right? Marvel 3 is obviously a broken game. The game is super broken, a lot of cheap shit. But the good thing about that game is, and why the game was so popular for so long, is because the meta was diverse. Obviously, you have characters like Zero and Morgan that are super, super strong, but there's a lot of other play styles and teams and creativity that you can use to either counteract or have your own cheapness. For example, like the Phoenix Wright team, right? What was that player's name? I Heard Justice. It's a Phoenix Wright team. His team's like obviously low tier characters, pretty shitty, but he wins with it because it's still cheap. Like he gets to play his own style and still come out on top. Like he can still win and have cheap stuff. And then obviously Morgan zoning. You have Zero like technical rush down, cheap mix-ups. Characters like Wolverine, stuff like that. Like obviously you're gonna see characters like Doom and Virgil show up a lot, but it's a good example of why a diverse meta will help people be enticed into the game more. Because if it's like, oh, zoning doesn't exist, yada yada, the grapplers suck, the only way you can play is rush down, rush down, rush down, it's gonna limit the amount of people that want to play. Because to say somebody only likes to play zoning or wants to play grapplers, and you can't do that because the meta sucks. So that could hurt the game a lot. Obviously we don't know how the meta is gonna be until the game is out for like a month or 2 or 3, but it could hurt the game a little bit. Another big thing is, obviously I talked about Shadowverse, but you know, that's a different game. What could hurt them is a bad World Tour design. If the World Tour design is not up to stuff, kind of like how Shadowverse is, it could probably weaken it. Like if they make it so, you know, spots are limited, if it's like really small in scale, if it doesn't give a lot of different kind of players a chance to like make their break to get in, it could possibly hurt the game. Like let's say if there's only like 2 to 3 tournaments that like you can qualify for or something like that, it could hurt because obviously people can't travel around the world all the time. You know, people have lives and work and stuff like that. So what's beneficial is the game, or at least the World Tour, gives plenty of opportunities for people to qualify. Let's say you can't go to this tournament, you can't go to this tournament, but there's like this one tournament in my region that I can make it to. That's a big deal for players like that. Because there could be really golly players that just don't have the money to be making trips around the world for. But you know, that's kind of a small deal because they already have a established game that has a nice World Tour, so I think that will be okay in that aspect. But it could hurt the game if they don't do it right. If they don't like try to copy or make a decent design like they do for Shadowverse. Okay, I think my last point for why it may not do well is lack of communication with the community. So this is a big thing in all games, not even just fighting games, like any competitive game that has like frequent updating, that's like multiplayer wise, I guess, is if the design team or like just the people that are making the game obviously don't communicate with what's going on, like what their plan is for future aspects of the game, or like frequent updates and stuff like that, it could hurt the game because people don't want to be left out in the dark. They want to know what's happening, obviously, with the future of the game, so they obviously can invest in it and feel like they're getting something out of it. Because the big thing is, let's say you're playing a game, right? And you can love it, obviously, but if the company has no kind of like plan and they're like not communicating well, then it could be like, why am I playing this game if they're not communicating with the community and we don't know what's going to happen? Like, I feel like I could be playing something else. That's how some people might feel about the game if they don't communicate with the community. But that's another thing that I don't think it'll be an issue for side games, but it could happen. It could be like they make the game, they update it a few times, they don't do anything with it. It could be pretty bad, obviously, if people don't know what's going on. If they feel like they're not going to update the game as much as they would hope, it could hurt. Obviously, turnout for tournaments and stuff like that. But yeah, my list for why it won't do well is much smaller. I only have 3 points for why it may not do well compared to why it would, compared to my 5. But yeah, that's all I got for you guys. But overall, I think the game will do well. There's a lot of good aspects, and the points that I mentioned that it may not do well, I feel like they will avoid those points. I hope. You know, Cygames is an established company and they have a good esports scene, so you know, the fingers are crossed. The fingers are crossed, Cygames. I believe in you. I believe in you guys. I think the game will do well. Okay? Alright, Cygames, look at me. I believe in you. Please. If you want support, I've been supporting the game. I'm supporting Cygames for mad long. Hook your boy up for the beta, of course. My DMs are open. But I think you guys will do fine. I believe in Cygames, and I am hyped for Granblue. I will be obviously grinding, going to tournaments a lot, and hopefully they will support us with a nice World Tour, good frequent updates,